The European Union's anti-piracy naval force says hijackers holding an oil tanker off the coast of Somalia are demanding a ransom. The EU force made contact with the ship's master, who says his vessel and crew are being held captive, anchored off the coast of northeast Somalia. The gunmen have, however, not given any details about the size of the ransom they are demanding. The EU is helping to tackle piracy in the region, but this is the first hijack off Somalia's coast since 2012. The ship was en route from Djibouti to the Somali capital Mogadishu when it sent a distress signal saying it was being approached by high-speed boats. The ship's tracking system has reportedly been switched off. The Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry has confirmed that 8 of its nationals were on board. The United Nations says fighting in Libya's oil coastline region this month has been marked by human rights violations, while attacks are likely to worsen in the coming days. The violence flared since March the 3rd when the Benghazi Defense Brigade, the BDB, attacked the oil crescent area between the ports of Ras Lanuf and Brega, while the Libyan National Army, the LNA, responded with airstrikes. The UN received allegations of the summary execution of 2 LNA fighters in the Ras Lanuf Medical Center on the same day, followed by LNA raids on homes of BDB supporters.
We've been receiving numerous reports of serious violations and abuses of international human rights and international humanitarian law committed by the parties to the conflict. Credible reports suggest that unlawful killings, including summary executions, hostage-taking, arbitrary detentions, torture, as well as widespread raids of civilian homes have been occurring, particularly in the towns of Ajdabiya, Benghazi, Brega, and Bashir. More than 100 men and boys were detained during these raids. LNA fighters beat and insulted men and women and stole money and other property from their houses. They've detained boys as young as 13 years old and men in their 70s. In one case, the LNA detained a 13-year-old boy who was held in order to force the family to hand over his older brother, who was suspected of being a fighter aligned with the BDB. We're deeply alarmed that the fighting and airstrikes by the LNA may continue to escalate in the coming days, and indeed they've already escalated overnight, leading to further human rights abuses against civilians. We urge all parties to the conflict to fully respect international human rights and humanitarian law, and to take all possible precautions to ensure that civilians are not harmed, and to treat all detainees humanely. We also urge all those with influence to work to de-escalate the situation.
Meanwhile, a UN investigator says the African Union and South Sudan are failing in their joint responsibility to set up a court to prosecute atrocities in the world's youngest country and are not cooperating with the United Nations inquiry. According to the United Nations, South Sudan's escalating violence has resulted in a massive increase in gross human rights violations over the past 9 months, and the humanitarian situation has worsened in recent weeks.
South Sudan gained independence in 2011, but collapsed into violence in late 2013 when rivalry between President Salva Kiir and his then deputy Riek Machar ignited a civil war that has often followed ethnic lines. Under an August 2015 peace deal, the African Union and South Sudan were supposed to set up a hybrid court based on a mix of their laws to prosecute suspects who include top political and military figures. Yasmin Suka, head of the UN Commission on Human Rights in South Sudan, says the court needs to be operational by the end of the year to stop a massive increase in gross human rights violations in the past 9 months.
Our report makes it clear that South Sudanese civilians have been deliberately and systematically targeted on the basis of their ethnicity by government and government-aligned forces for killing, abduction, unlawful detention, deprivation of liberty, rape and sexual violence, the burning of villages, and looting. On the ground, this translates into bound corpses left on roadsides, hunger where once there was plenty, and thousands of children ripped from their mothers, some forced to carry guns and kill, yet another lost generation.
Besides farming and ethnic conflict, the war has unleashed an epidemic of rape, uprooted nearly 2 million people within the country, and created more than 1.5 million refugees. A UN investigator says both the AU and the South Sudan government had failed to engage with the commission. But South Sudan's Justice Minister, Paulino Unango, told the council that he doesn't recognize the commission's portrayal of his country.
The report is not about the country I am coming from. There is a lot of exaggerations based on allegations and a lot of assumptions of reality that are not there. And even the fact that the commission is bold enough in saying that the majority of the large part of the South Sudan is under the non-state actors, and all the institutions there are not functioning.
The UN Commission, however, says the government obstructs and manipulates aid for famine-hit, opposition-controlled areas, risking even greater catastrophe. The opposition also contributed to the famine by attacking government installations, looting convoys and terrorizing communities suspected of supporting the government or the Dinka tribe.
Well, Kenyan doctors have ended a 3-month strike in public hospitals after reaching an agreement on pay and working conditions with the government. The agreement grants doctors increased allowances, outlines a promotion plan, and protects doctors who went on strike from retribution. County governments will recognize the union and conclude local agreements within 60 days. The doctors went on strike on December 5, demanding authorities implement a 2013 agreement to give them a 150 to 180% pay rise. The protest upset the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is seeking re-election when Kenya holds parliamentary and presidential elections in August.
I want to tell Kenyans that this situation is regrettable, and as one person has said, we hope it will never happen again in the history of this country, where we put ourselves first and the rest of Kenyans second. Yes, there are grievances. We must learn how to resolve them without occasioning pain to other people. Those 100 days, as we mentioned them as professionals in the health sector, they will remain black pages in the history of practice of medicine in this country.
There cannot be a separation between the rights of patients and the rights of doctors. But today we are happy that the doctors' union have finally put to an end the strike. While the strike is over, the dispute may not be, because we need to restore industrial harmony between ourselves and our employers.
Still to come on Network Africa. African football goes to the polls on Thursday to choose a new CAF president. Please stay with us for details.